Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Whiteboard. My name is Kaushik, and I'm the Director of Business Alliances at White Labs. We are a digital agency specializing in SaaS and e-commerce SEO. And I've got Ryan O'Donnell with me, co-founder at Replyify. Replyify is a B2B SaaS platform to automate personalized cold email and follow-ups sent directly from your email account. A big welcome to you, Ryan, and I'm so happy to host you today.
Awesome. Glad to be here, Harsh. Let's do it.
Brilliant. Now, before we dive into your platform, can you please let the viewers know a little bit about you and your professional journey?
Yeah, it's boring. I started on Wall Street answering a Craigslist ad, not
Yeah.
real Wall Street, where I was like recruited from a top Ivy League school. I moved to New York with my girlfriend and now wife and needed a job. And there was a stockbroker listing in the city, and I applied and took it and studied for the Series 7 and 63 and kind of cut my teeth as a stockbroker, like coming up from nothing. I was making 500 calls a day, connecting with 50 executives, pitching 5 of them, and trying to close 1 account. Like it was a grind.
Yeah.
So I moved from finance and kind of realized that I didn't want to be in finance the rest of my life, and building a book of business in New York, when ultimately I wanted to have a family and kind of move. So I got into tech, started it. I worked at a couple different startups there, ultimately ended up at one called Media. I was there for 2 years before we were acquired by Yahoo, and then worked at Yahoo for the next couple years, building out business development and growth markets outside of the US. So I was in India, Hong Kong, London, Singapore, Buenos Aires, all over the world, setting up ad exchanges and doing sales and business development for Yahoo at that time. Left
Mhm.
there in 2010, started my first startup, pivoted, and went back and forth. And ultimately, when we closed down that startup that we were working on for a couple of years that really didn't go anywhere, that's what started me on the path for what turned out to be Replyify. So the first thing that we built the day after closing down startup number 1 was a Chrome plugin for LinkedIn for building prospect lists and getting email addresses from LinkedIn. So the inspiration for creating Replyify really came from that first business that worked. It's called sellhack.com. It's still out there in the world. The
Yeah.
list building email verification space has been so over commoditized and just this race to the bottom that we saw the writing on the wall a couple of years ago, and we built Replyify as a hedge against that, as a hedge against this commoditization of the list building and email address market. We said, okay, we have all these clients and people who are finding emails and building prospect lists. What do they do after they get the emails? We built Replyify to be just a simple to use cold email automation platform. And the genesis of why we built it was moving our Cell Hack business over to Replyify, and then we were our first customer. We've always been our first customer. And when I say we, my co-founder and CTO, like we like building solutions for ourselves first, and
Oh,
then really using and dog fooding our own products and services is what kind of helps us deliver a consistent product to market.
that's brilliant. That's brilliant. And what sets it apart from other sales automation tools? What are your main USPs?
Yeah, so there are some folks who come to us and they're familiar with cold email. They've been doing it for a while, and they're just looking for a better, faster, easier to use option. The other half of the folks who find us, and you'd be surprised, even today, it's just folks who've had experience either only using MailChimp and
Oh,
never having previously used a cold email platform, or they're using like a wonky mail merge set up on their Office 365 or G Suite, and they're looking to upgrade. So a lot of folks find us, like I said, coming in, their only experience with email is using something like MailChimp to send out their newsletters. They've never done outreach. So for us, like the first thing that we'd want to clarify, and I guess for the people listening here, if you have not used a dedicated kind of cold email automation platform and always MailChimp or Marketo or Constant Contact or these, there's a big difference, right? So the biggest difference is a dedicated cold email platform like Replyify. We connect directly to your email account. using OAuth, right? One click connect, connect your Gmail, connect your Office 365. We don't want to store your passwords. You don't have to do it, right? Google, Microsoft have these kind of one click connectors. So you come in, connect your email account, and Replyify sends the emails from your email account. Okay. So the sent emails that go out through Replyify, you can see them in the sent folder on your Gmail or Outlook. For the folks coming from MailChimp who might not have had experience with that, MailChimp does not send emails directly from your email account. The emails that MailChimp sends, they come from their IP addresses. It may look and feel like it's coming from you. It's not. From a deliverability standpoint, your recipients, whoever you're emailing, they're going to be using Gmail or Microsoft or GoDaddy or whatever as their email host. Those email hosts, when they see these emails coming in from MailChimp or Constant Contact or whatever, just look at your inbox. That those emails get classified as a newsletter or a promotion. They get put in the
Yeah.
other inbox, okay, because they're not coming directly from you. So Replyify it sends these emails directly from you. They look and feel like they're coming from you, and that helps to get you inboxed at a much higher rate, especially when sending out to a list of prospects that you may not have ever engaged with before. So I guess going back to your original question, like what sets us apart? Anybody offering cold email services, they let you connect your email address. They let you create a campaign or a sequence of emails, and those emails are separated by wait periods. Everyone tracks open rates and clicks and has a dashboard so you can see what's going on and upload. That's all basic stuff. Where we set ourselves apart for Replyify is like our number one goal is making sure that the emails that go out never look automated, right? They don't look like any sort of machine had any sort of interaction with sending the emails. Little things, right? Like the ability to change the time of the day that you want your emails to start sending based on the step of the campaign sequence. So your prospects, if they're not getting back to you after the first, second, third, or fourth email, it's not, oh, great, here's this Ryan dude again. He emails me every Wednesday at noon. This is obviously it's not him. So we try to simulate this one-to-one, very personalized communication. So having features and functionality built in to make sure that it is hyper-personalized, that we are inboxing you at a high rate, that you have the ability to make these little tweaks that might not seem like a big deal on the front end, but to your recipient and to your recipient's mail server, it's signaling that, hey, this isn't just some random bot behind the scenes robo blasting these emails out.
Gotcha. Gotcha. And since you mentioned personalization, it does play a critical role. What's the percentage of personalization do you recommend? That the percentage of uniqueness that should be there on the cold outreach, right? So that you don't end up in the spam folder. And nowadays, it's pretty, even Gmail updated their algorithm after a long time, specifically targeting such emails altogether. So, how do you tackle with that? And what's the recommended personalization percentage, uniqueness percentage that you would suggest? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So when we talk about like these systems, like looking at Google, we'll just focus on Google. Like Microsoft has similar kind of expectations and information that they share, but let's focus on Google for a second. So Google has this big black box, and there are certain rules that you need to operate within, right? And they will give senders, right? So whether it's third party platforms like me or whether it's a sender like you, for example, they will give you and your organization kind of guidance on what you should be doing to operate within their rules, right? And within their confines. And so from a personalization perspective, I don't have a hard fast percentage. 30% of your email needs to be different on a contact by contact basis, meaning from one to the other. I've actually seen that backfire, especially when you try to use a GPT service or add some sort of generative AI where all of these systems are now, with the rise of AI just in the last year or so, these systems are also looking at how do we detect generative AI. And if we can detect that a sender is using AI, that just discounts any of the good things that they would have already been doing had they not tried to hyper personalize it or get too cute with it. Here's what I've
Okay.
seen work really well, okay? And it depends on what your workflow and your use case is, okay? So go into the numbers. If you need to, let's say, if you need to generate 5 meetings per week, okay? Let's say it takes you 500 emails to generate 5 meetings, okay? So you have your number on a weekly basis, you need to send 500 emails to get 5 meetings. And we'll call that business A needs to follow that. Let's say business B doesn't have the same metrics, different offering, different prospect segment. They're selling into a different industry, higher sales. So they might need 5,000 emails to get 5 meetings. Okay. So when you're talking about personalization, there are things that you can do that are going to work for some businesses because their unit economics in terms of how many people they need to reach out to might be a lot less than somebody who might need to send a lot higher volume. So what we've seen work really well is when you're setting up a campaign on Replyify, we have 2 different types of emails. We have a manual email and an automated email, and they can be interchanged throughout the campaign sequence. So if you're looking at email 1, if you're sending out emails to a, let's say, a smaller audience, but you want to make sure that you're putting your best foot forward, you can use a manual email as email number 1. So basically what happens is that when you set your campaign live, let's say you upload 100 contacts, you'll have 100 to-do items inside of Replyify that you'll basically be able to go in. You'll have sentence 2, 3, 4, and 5 will be preloaded and pre-filled, and we'll say it's going to be the same for basically everyone. But the manual email allows you to go in and add a custom connection statement, okay? Maybe you want to go check out that person's Twitter feed or look at their LinkedIn or reference a recent earnings call, right? So you can physically type it into the Replyify UI. Once you push send, then the rest of your campaign takes over, right? So 5 days later, follow-up number 1 will go out. That can be automated. 7 days after that, follow-up 2 goes out. That can be automated. Let's say 2 weeks after that, you want to have a manual email. You want one more chance to put your best foot forward. Like that's all. So you can go between this like full automation,
Yeah.
this semi-automation, depending on your business practice. Outside of using like these manual emails, you can fill out your own like connection statement or interesting kind of thing to reference in your contact list before you upload your leads. You
Okay.
just create a new column, type a sentence or put a phrase or something, and then you can use our variables to automatically insert that text directly into your email content.
Yeah.
Customize links, right? If you're the type of company who we have clients who we have an insurance agent that comes to mind who they create a customized video for every person they reach out to. They
Okay.
use some AI and kind of automation on the back end to customize all these different videos. But what they end up with is like 100 different unique links for each of their 100 contacts. And you can, when you upload that data file into Replyify, we've got a way to add a custom link for each contact, and then you can personalize the words that are hyperlinked there.
Are you
Um,
hosting the videos on Replyify?
We're not hosting the videos. Typically, if you're doing something like this, these videos are getting hosted on your AWS or Dropbox, or if you're using a third-party company, they'll just kick out the links. We provide a way to add this personalization. So what I try to stay away from, and by default, like what we are experimenting with right now and have been for the last year, but haven't found something that's had more upside than potential risk, has been using spin taxing and putting in these different ways of saying different things. We're seeing that some of these AIs that might have worked like 2 years ago before ChatGPT was on folks' radars are really like not helping right now. They're getting caught in just a very rudimentary decision process that we can only assume Google, Microsoft are running your email content through some sort of AI detection. And we're seeing that using spin taxing is actually getting emails flagged, or at least by way of their deliverability going down, looking at their opens and clicks, compared to sending very much the same content to your
Yeah.
prospects, just customizing their first name.
But
And
Ryan,
and
don't we think so? It has become a general practice now, even if it's not a cold outreach. But in general, people also take help of these generative AIs help to compose their email. Even Gmail has something of a similar lines. There are a lot of other tools, service providers who which kind of help you compose a better email through generative AI. So don't you think it's like contrary to the belief that AI content is getting flagged?
I believe that if you just solely rely on generative AI content getting auto-populated on the back end and automatically inserted without your review,
Yeah.
causes more harm than it actually does good. So what I would rather see is creating, so with Replyify, you can create A, B, C, D, E, F, G versions of your different campaigns. And you can start that from the onset. So if you have, let's say, an A, a B, and a C version of your campaign, I would rather see our clients go in and, rather than rely on a GPT system to bin tax your first version, I'd rather just see you use your industry knowledge
Yeah.
and your own personality, and like, you do the rewrite. And now you have three different versions of email one, and three different versions of email two, and three different versions of email three if you want, with some slight differences, but you're not risking saying something to the effect of being too long-winded, being overly like AI. And you know how AI is when you use it. Like, you can't, it sounds cheesy, it sounds corny, it's too easy to pick up on.
Yeah.
So I'd rather see people just put their best foot forward in customizing, either using a manual email or having a couple different versions of each template for each step. And that's one of the services that we offer at Replyify. So all of our new clients, we're selective who we work with, right? And then we offer all of them before they go live with a campaign. Like, we're happy to review them. And your campaigns are not getting reviewed in blind by software. They're also not getting reviewed by a recent college grad who's on their second or third job out of school and hasn't been in the space. You're getting the people who've built the platform, who are involved in everything. And that adds to that, both helps with the personalization, and from a business standpoint, it helps us to look at your content and make sure that you're not sending spam or sending something that ultimately could blow back or have a negative impact on the rest of our senders,
Yeah.
because you're not following the can spam rules and regulations and the best practices that like Google gives you, for example.
Yeah. Ryan, B2B space, what would you recommend to people? Basically, to space out the sequences, like what should be the ideal day gap between the sequences to get fit comes to automated flow altogether.
Yeah, so don't give up too early. Don't prematurely shoot yourself in the foot by bowing out and saying, "Hey, it looks like you're busy and I'm just going to leave you alone." Because it's hard to come back from that and then start back up with another 5 emails. So one of the things that we built in a Replyify, like out of the beginning, like right from the gates, was the ability to edit live campaigns.
Hmm.
Okay. What does that do? And nobody allows that. Like, editing live campaigns, like once you look at other platforms out there, once you set up a campaign and set it live, like, it's locked up. So trying to add additional email steps to a 5-step campaign, most of the time you're creating a new campaign and then you're moving contacts over, and now you've got to look at data in between two campaigns. So right out of the gates, we made it so that Replyify had the ability to edit live campaigns and add additional steps. How does that help? At the onset, for new clients, you don't have to worry about going through this like paralysis by analysis, right? I've still got a guy, it's been 18 months and he keeps telling me that he needs another month to actually send me a link to a Google Doc which has his email templates in it. This dude just won't write his emails. He just keeps kicking the can down the road because he like doesn't have them, he doesn't have this like perfect approach.
No.
So what we advise our clients is, look, you don't need the perfect like 10-step email sequence, right? You just need 3 emails. to start with. Just write me 3 emails and make sure your 3rd email isn't saying, "Sounds like you're busy, I'm gonna leave you alone," at this point. Write 3 emails. Here's how I like to approach it, okay? I like to in my first email, right, I'm going for 3 to 5 sentences, um, no more, no less. Like, I like short and sweet. If you gotta explain something, like, link out to a blog post you wrote on it or attach a PDF document to it. Don't attach Word docs, Excel docs, PowerPoints. Those are all susceptible to hacking. They're vulnerable, and Google, Microsoft, that's like auto spam folder if you send out those open file extensions. Like PDFs are fine, links are okay. The way I like to do my emails, I do a quick hi, first name, Ryan here from Replyify. We help companies like X, Y, and Z automate their sales and marketing. And then I'll ask a question. I won't even ask for the meeting on the first one. I'll just say, who are you using to send out your cold emails? I'll just ask them the question. I'll get a lot of people reply back and they'll be like, oh, we're sending them out with this company, maybe a competitor, or we're using
Yeah.
MailChimp. But I don't say on my first email, I'm not saying, hey, how's your calendar look for 15-minute call and demo later this week. I ask them a simple question. Sometimes in that first email, I will just ask a question. Hey, Harsh, who are you using for cold email? Thanks, Ryan. Boom. That's email 1. Email 2, we have a feature called the bump, a bump option. So you turn the bump on for email 2. When you turn the bump on, that's going to automatically keep email 2 on the same thread as email 1, right? So you don't have to fake a reply. It's just like going into your sent folder, finding an email that you sent to someone, and then hitting reply on that. Does the same exact thing. We automatically keep your previous message and the headers and timestamps, and then we keep that follow-up email on the same thread. So email 2 can have a little self-deprecation, right? You can say something to the effect of, hey, Harsh, Ryan again, and then you can be a little bit longer winded, give a little bit more background because you only asked one question in that first email.
Yeah.
So I might follow up on that bumped email maybe 3 to 5 days later. I'm going to keep them tight together, okay? My third email, if I'm not gonna, so my third email, I can start a totally new thread. I would just leave the bump off. So I got a new subject line. You want to make sure that you don't have 8 emails at the end of the day that are all in the same subject line in a big thread, right?
Yeah.
That screams desperation. At the same time, you want to balance that by showing people that, hey, I've emailed you before. This is not the first time and you've ghosted me, right? So if I'm going to have, let's say, 6 steps in my email sequence, I'm going to have 2 to 3 threads in that sequence, right? And each thread is going to have its own, let's call it theme. Thread 1 is just my initial kind of, just want to break the ice, right? I want to ask a simple question and a simple ask of them. Thread number 2, which is follow up 3 and follow up 4, I might be giving out some more information. I might be letting them know that we work with people who are similar to them,
Mhm.
that we handle deliverability better than any other cold email platform based on how we only work with certain clients, for example. Email 5 and 6 on that separate thread might be like my last money shot. Maybe I give them an offer. Hey, wanted to throw this out there. 1 month free in exchange for that. Love 15 minutes to show you how it works. Or who else on your team can I send a trial invite to? So there's different psychological motivators that you can play in. And you can see with all this how like like the paralysis by analysis can kick in. So people keep thinking like, gosh, I don't know what my offer is going to be. I don't know how to do this. So we say, great, just get to 3 emails. Just go live with something. Send real emails to
Yeah.
someone. And you want to make sure that like the spacing between the emails, that there's no hard fast rule for it. Just make sure it fits with the content of what you're sending these people. Make sure that you're not putting this like hard press on where you're sending them like 6 emails in the span of 14 days, right? I like to go like tight together, 1 and 2 a little bit tighter together. Then I like to give them a little break and then come back with 3 and 4 maybe a little tighter together. Just make sure that whatever you're sending has a cadence to it. And if you notice that you're starting to annoy people because your emails are too close together or they're not right, you can always make those edits and increase or decrease the time between the emails. And just like I said, this is like this is a living experiment, and that's how you should be approaching cold email. But you got to get started somewhere. and you got to get started with something. We've got more on our blog. We're happy. Anyone listening, you want to come to our site and ask questions in the chat, we'll get back to you. But everyone's different. I would just think about in terms of the emails that you get as a recipient and looking at the way people cold email you, and then thinking about who your recipient is and just being natural with it and not overly aggressive.
Right. Wait, I'd love to collect your thoughts on how to build an excellent sender reputation and lower bounces, unsubscribes, and spam complaints.
Yeah. So it starts with the list building phase for me. Even one step before the list building, you got to figure out like what type of person are you? What kind of sales executive are you or account executive? Or even for the OG entrepreneurs out there who are like doing your own kind of self hustling, like you got to figure out like what kind of organization are you going to be? Are you going to keep doing like this dogmatic process that has been like either handed down or something that you contrived as like your first version of what is our target market, right? I would rather see you fine. If you got to stick in that lane, do that. But I also want to see you experimenting and looking for different ways of creating different personas. So all too often I see people coming in, they're like, yeah, like our target customer is a very broad, right? It's a VP at a technology company, right? And they don't really have industries defined, right? They don't really have company sizes split off. So I like to build my lists and build my prospect segments in a very granular way, right? So I like to come up with what these segments are first. I like to build the list for these like micro segments. I like to have one campaign for each micro segment. Okay. And that campaign can be duplicated off of your master campaign. You can easily duplicate and then make these tweaks. But I like to have a really targeted message for a very granular segment of prospects, right? Based on industry, company size, location. And then once you have that list building knocked out, then you're writing kind of very specific campaigns for these people. So that's on like the qualitative side, right? And just making sure that you've got that you are experimenting, that you are thinking outside the box, that you're running a search on LinkedIn for these prospects, and then you're adding a search criteria for maybe the group that they're in, right? Maybe you guys are in the same group, and maybe you want to reference that, or maybe you want to maybe you build a list for the college university you went to, right? And maybe you want to reference that in a campaign. So there's a lot of different ways of getting your prospecting um, dialed in, and then your content kind of aligned up. That's the qualitative side. The quantitative component to this, like these are things, or the technical component to this, like these are things that Google and Microsoft tell you to do. It's like having your DKIM and your SPF in place. Like 2 years ago, I would say 20% of people had an SPF record. Today, I'd say that 80% of the people that I come into contact with have an SPF record set up. That's the sender policy framework, right? It's like a text record you add to your DNS or wherever your email's hosted. It tells Google and Microsoft if both if they're your email provider or if they're the provider for your recipient. It tells them that you are who you say you are, right? It's like going through customs at border control without a passport, not having one. It's an immediate fail. If you don't have an SPF record associated to your email domain, like that's an immediate fail, and you need to change that now, right? Google just came out with some guidance over the summer, and you're going to see this in the next couple months. Starting in February 2024, Google has changed their approach and their requirements for senders, right? And they are upping the bar and increasing the scrutiny of cold outbound emails. So for the senders of cold emails, not only do you now need to have DKIM and domain keys identifiers, so you have to have DKIM and SPF in place, and we'll help you if you have any questions. But BIMI is like this new verification method, which basically verifies your logo and that like you're sending from the company and you have permission. It's an extra verification. So Google on their we should probably link to this in the show notes. I know you already have this because we talked about this last week, but
Yeah.
we'll make sure that we link in the show notes with basically Google telling you what they expect of you and what they want you to do. And I would say it's a great exercise coming into the start of the year to work through, just like Google tells SEO experts, like, here's, we just made a big update. Here's what we're looking at. They're now giving a lot better guidance than they have historically for email senders. So the bar is going up in terms of the requirements, but they're also being a lot more transparent in terms of what they're looking for.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And to be honest, the rules around helps people in a way, businesses in a way, because you refine your content and your strategy around it and deliver better messages. And but I would love to take your opinion on this manual versus automated. What would you advise ideally? And what are the pros and cons of both?
So I advise both, right? And here's one workflow that works really well for us. So if you're thinking about, and let's break this up, let's at least talk like cold prospects right now, people you've never engaged with. Okay. Number one goal with someone that you've never engaged with before, your number one goal is getting into their inbox, right? Not getting caught in the spam folder, ideally not getting routed to the promotions folder or the other inbox, but that's an improvement from being in the spam folder. So ideally you want to land in the inbox. So for me, and from my experience and personally, what I do, at least when the scale allows it, there are times where I just can't send a manual email and personalize it. I'm too busy, right? But sending out a manual email that has no links, no pictures, no images, no, just a very simple manual email from your Gmail or Outlook, that is the easiest way to land in the inbox 90% of the time. If you send an email manually from your Gmail, you will land in the other person's inbox at an incredibly high rate.
Mm.
Okay. So if you're deploying that tactic, we actually have a feature built in that works with that type of a tactic. Okay. So if you're sending out a manual email from your Gmail, let's say on Replyify, you have we call it a follow-up campaign. On Replyify, you're going to have a campaign of emails. Let's say it's 5 emails. Okay.
Yeah.
The first email is going to have the bump turned on because we're following up to our manual email sent outside of Replyify. The way that we add that contact to the campaign is with the campaign's BCC email address. So every campaign is going to have a unique BCC email address. I like to save that email address as a contact in Gmail. And then when
Yeah.
I manually email someone from my Google Workspace account, my Gmail, I'm going to in the BCC field, I'm going to add that campaign's BCC email address. So when I push send, email is going to go out. It's going to get delivered to the primary inbox. I'm there, right? That's the recipient's mail server. Let me in, right? I'm now there. And unless that person marks me as spam or moves me, my automated follow-up or follow-ups that are coming are now grandfathered in, right?
Mm.
I've already been in the inbox. So the chances of me getting back to the inbox are at a much higher rate
Yeah.
than if I just started with an automated email for email one that's got a ton of links and images and trying to like over fluff it. I'd rather go like simple and just dead straight, get in the inbox. And that's like your wedge, right? That's your way in. And then from there, you can expand and let the automation take over. Like that works really well. It does have a manual component. The next step would be using our manual email to like inside of Replyify to add some more personalization and have a semi-automated campaign. And then the easiest to do and probably what most people just start with is going to be full on everything's automated. It's customized for that person with their name and maybe some variables referencing their company or their job title or whatnot. And on that spectrum, you got to find like what works best for you. But certainly, manual is going to be that wedge to getting you into the inbox better than anything else.
That's fine. Trent, let's talk a bit more on the analytics and reporting part. I would love to know what are the main KPIs and even like with the capabilities of Replyify, anything with respect to the reporting bit that you're doing different from the other industry competitors of yours.
Yeah, so reporting comes in two different flavors. And I'm trying to do, I love kind of sharing experience here. And just for folks, if you're still with us and listening, thank you. I'm doing my best to like not make this a big commercial about Replyify. Like, do your own research. There's different options out there. I can speak to these different workflows and that from Replyify's perspective. When we're looking at reporting, we see two different like reporting needs, right? The first is going to be from the team reporting, right? So let's say it's the VP of sales or it's the head of sales operations, or let's say you're an agency, right? And you're a Facebook ad agency, or you're an SEO agency, or you're an outbound B2B agency, whatever, and you have clients. So Replyify has a ridiculous like team functionality. So we make it really simple for you to manage a team or multiple teams of people, right? You can pay for their licenses or you can require them to pay for their own. So a ton of customization and flexibility there. But we make it so that you don't have to log out and log in of every person's account to get access to it. So with one click, you can jump in and out of all of your team members' accounts if they've granted you permissions. Maybe someone's on holiday and you need to start a campaign or run a report or add contacts or something. So we make it really easy for executives to have visibility across their entire team to see what kind of activities taking place, make it really easy for that team to be managed and more looking for some of those KPIs like what's my open rate, what's my click rate, how many contacts are in the queue and haven't been activated? Are there none in the queue? That means I have to go back in and find more contacts. So the team management component to Replyify is awesome. We've built it for a couple different agencies. One of our agencies sold recently for seven figures. It's just like the team functionality is awesome on a day-to-day basis, right? So you as an individual operator, as an account exec, as a business owner who's doing your own outreach, I go back and forth on my recommendation here. Okay. So part of me wants to say Replyify is a passive platform or your cold email platform. The whole point of it for most people, it's an efficiency tool, right? You need a cold email platform because you sitting in front of your Gmail or Outlook and sending these emails one by one, and then going back in a week later and looking to see in your sent folder, who did you email and who replied back and who do you need to follow up with? All that stuff's crazy. It's a huge waste of time. Mail merges don't give it to you. You need something that's going to have a cumulative open rate, click rate, daily volume, as well as a kind of broken down on a step-by-step basis to see what's my open rate for step one, what's my open rate for step two, step three, step four. We're looking at open rates and we're saying, okay, if this is higher than this or this is lower than that, maybe my subject line needs changed. And that's a great indicator to go back in, duplicate that campaign variant, create a B or a C or a D version, tweak the subject line, let that run. And then if you want to get in and you really want to get into your analytics, now you're comparing which one wins, right? So maybe you kill the one that doesn't win, you keep the one that wins. Maybe you do a test down the road. I don't suggest like getting, I don't suggest spending too much time trying to rack your brain as to why your open rates are here and why your click rates are there. Granted, if you see big drops in what you're used to seeing, or over time, if you're seeing your open rate go down, that could be a signal that something's up. That could be a signal that there's a domain reputation issue, right? It could just be that you're sending out too many links in your emails, like you've changed your email content. It could be that people, let's say in a given time period over the last 2 weeks, have not interacted or engaged with your emails
Mm.
positively, meaning they opened or clicked or forwarded or replied, that they haven't done these positive actions as much as a cohort of people who've interacted with your emails a month ago have, right? So that there's so many things at play. Like part of it is don't look at the data. Like don't focus on the opens and clicks because a lot of those are bots. It's security software. A lot of the opens and clicks that you're getting, they're false positives or false negatives, right? It's the recipient's kind of security software going through and making sure that your click redirects to a page that's SSL'd, right? And not
Mm.
going to like a malware site. So there are so many things that play. Like part of me is just saying, look, focus on just topping off your campaigns with new contacts. And as long as you're continuing to send your emails and your account isn't getting isn't getting shut down or on a daily basis, like you're not hitting your limits. Google's not saying, "Whoa, you've hit your limit for the day. You're done sending emails." Like part of me is in the camp of just saying, "Forget the stats. Just keep finding more contacts and keep emailing people because it's working. Your email is still working. It's still getting delivered. Yeah, your open rate might be down a bit, but like you can't control that. You don't always have control over it. And if you spend your time trying to like needle in and figure out like every single component, you're wasting time that you could have potentially been running an experiment, right? Running a different version of your campaign with less links or no images, right? And you might find that by doing that, you see a 30% increase in your open rate and click rate. That's going to tell you that, hey, my click rate is not down because of my sender reputation. It's down because perhaps Google or Microsoft are putting more weight on too many links or too many images in your email. So if you just scale them back and make them more text based, that's your long-term play. Just like with SEO, right? All these a search engine will push a change. You'll have a bunch of pages whose traffic will drop because of certain things, and they'll need to go back in, make some changes, read the documentation, follow the best practices, and just have your eye on the ball, which is like your KPI or what you're focused on is different for everyone. But for a lot of folks in cold email, it's like getting the meeting booked. So you need to get more meetings booked. And if your open rate's dropping and you're not getting as many meetings booked, the quickest way to fix that, as long as you're still getting inbox, the quickest way to fix that is to find more contacts and get more contacts into your campaign.
Gotcha. How many email sent out do you recommend per sender email? What should be the limit to that? Ideally.
Our default daily, and the training wheels are on with Replyify to start. And I'll tell you why we do this. Default daily is 250 max to start, especially if you're new to this. In the show notes, we are going to link you out to Google's help documents on this. This is like new stuff that they just published. There are some interesting things in there that they will not give you specific numbers, except for saying anyone who sends more than five, or any organization that sends more than 5,000 emails is considered like a bulk email sender. Look, none of you on this call right now, no one's sending out 5,000 emails, right? Like it's not going to happen. It just don't even get that number in your head. 500 a day, I like. If you can get to 500, 750 is great. If you can have, if you can build up to that number. And what Google explicitly says in their most recent guidance for email senders is that if you are a new sender, meaning you don't have experience sending emails, you need to work up your volume. You need to ease into it. So if you're thinking you're going to come out of the gates with a brand new email domain for just for cold email, or using your primary email but you've never cold emailed before, and you're going to start sending out high volume with any sort of efficacy, that's a fail right out of the gates. You're gonna burn your email account because you're gonna fly too hard. So with Replyify, we have a warm up feature, right? That plays exactly along with Google script, which is going to warm up your email, and it's going to warm you up and increase your volume steadily over time until we get to that like 350 to 450 to 550. And then we're going to let the higher you go, the longer you want to let that play out as you ease into the next level, right? But Google explicitly calls out in their most recent guidance how important it is for both new senders with new email accounts and for folks who haven't done cold email at scale, how important it is to ramp up your volume. And you also have to read between the lines, because they also tell you that if you make a mistake, if you go too hard or too fast, they basically tell you they're going to penalize you for it. They don't tell you to what degree or how, but you certainly don't want to get on the bad side or in you don't want to go too hard too fast. So having a patient approach to ramping up your email, it's just part of the game. And uh, I'll pause there in case you want to go and dig more or move on.
No, 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 that's fine. I would love To come to my last question. What all do you do for your own lead generation for Replyify?
This get invited to share some knowledge and expertise with folks like you who might have an audience that we might not be engaging with on a daily basis. Do a lot of this. We get a lot of referrals. We dog food our own tech, so we do participate in outbound. So we send cold emails. So Replyify is not like we don't focus on the enterprise. And in the course of doing your own research and finding the perfect cold email platform for you, there's platforms out there that focus on the enterprise, right? That's just who they are, right? So they have big sales teams and big integrations, and there's conference calls that are happening at your organization once it's deployed. It's a very long process. With us, we run a much tighter organization here, right? So Replyify was built initially for us, right? For me. I was client number one. I'm still a daily customer, but we build our features and functionalities based on our needs, right? And we have a very flexible and very experimental mindset. So when college football season comes around, it's here, but when playoff season comes around, when those four colleges get into the final four of the college football, like I'll target my cold email outreach to the four schools that are there. And my subject line will say something like go Bucks or roll Tide. And that gets engagement. So like we do a lot more like bespoke stuff. We build courses, right? We have a 7-day cold email crash course. It's actually delivered by Replyify. So we have a campaign that sends out one email a day to folks who hit it. We have a landing page for it. We drive ads to it. It's linked in all of our inbound, but we manage our client base very tightly. The biggest reason for that is we want to make sure that when you send a cold email with Replyify, our fingerprint is on that email. Any cold email platform, their fingerprint is on your email. Okay. So, in a very small degree, but it's still like the email providers can tell. And if you're the type of platform that works with everyone and doesn't care, right? Just drops your prices and you'll take anything you can get. You send from like spammy Gmail accounts who are actually selling things in the cold email. Like those platforms inbox you at a much lower rate than a platform like Replyify, who we don't work with everyone. If you're sending spammy emails or you're not following the guidelines, we do not renew your account. We do not allow you to send with us. The
Yeah,
benefit there is it creates a safer environment for our clients to send in, and it frees up more time for us to spend some of that extra time at no additional cost at the front end with our new clients to make sure that we're helping them take their 4-paragraph cold email and turn that into 4 subsequent emails and help them with the copywriting. And we are invested in our client success, and we prefer working with folks who have a similar mindset to us and want to try new things and have a very simple, easy to use platform. And that's our main value prop.
that's great. Thank you, Ram. Thank you so much for all the time, all the wisdom that you've shared. I'm pretty sure that our folks gonna enjoy this session and learn a lot from this. And I personally learned a lot. So I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Cool. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Hark.